What's going on, everybody? Welcome, welcome, peace, salutations to all the warriors, all the generals, all of the goddesses, empresses, the witches, the warlocks, in the truest sense, the medicine men and women, those that are in the spiritual realms of this battle, moving beyond just the metaphysical plane, but into the true quantum sphere. So, um, it's a couple things that I'm going to address today, right? It's one topic that I'm going to address is the whole situation with Sean Combs. Um, and then I'm going to address a whole nother situation that we're seeing right now, the situation with Israel and well, I should say the state of the progression of what they want to be the Third World War, um, the offshoreman strikes, why they still happening. Um, but all right, so for those that don't know me, I am 1080 World Smith, aka Nefer Temu, El Eagle Bear, the diabolical 1080 Temu. I also am known as Centered Gravity. For those that go all the way back to that time, all the way back to 94. Anyway, um, so the whole situation with Sean Combs is really kind of like this, y'all. All of this stuff is ritualized. It's in a state of they make it a theatrical play, and there's three forms of it, right? There's the picturized or the the copy, okay, the actual um, making images, depictions of certain scenes, whether they be still shots or motion pictures, right? Because a motion picture is just frame by frame, right? That's why you got the ticker there to count the seconds, up to hundreds of thousands of a second, because you're counting movements of a frame, right? No different than if you was to draw a comic book old school way. You know how we used to make 1,000 different images to make an image just to go like that, you know. And the whole time you gotta, so you gotta depict each image. So what we're watching right now is the Monsters Ball. And the Monsters Ball, if you remember when Sean Combs played in that movie, he was on death row, which just so happens to be the opposition record label from Bad Boy, supposedly, because this is controlled opposition. They play the game the black and white square in masonry. So this is the you got the Puff Daddy and the Suge Knight, you know. So what is Puffy? What was Puffy? Was he a let's say bishop on the chessboard? Is Suge Knight the actual knight on the chessboard, moving every 90 degrees while he moves horizontal? I mean, diagonally. You know, but either way it goes, you know, Sean Combs is a puppet and had been a puppet for Clive Davis for a long time, and he is most certainly the one that's introduced him to the things that we're seeing transpire in music today. I mean, it's a culture. Y'all got to understand that they made this pact in the '60s, 1960. They made this pact. and they this is when the satanic churches took over the music industry in particular, because they wanted to be able to control rock music. Rock music was being birthed at that time. They had no control over, you know, rhythm and blues. And so, you know, there was already rumors that the greatest blues players and singers were people who had met the devil at the crossroads. And, you know, if anybody knows really done any real studies, you know that they're talking about made a spiritual pact with some entity. They don't mean literally who y'all call so-called Satan, or, you know, because no such entity actually exists. We're talking about energies, right? And so a lot of people use spiritual rituals to contact these energies. You know, in Islam they call them jinn, or even in certain, you know, dialects of languages that's spoken connected to Arabic, they call them jinn. Okay, and these jinn are just entities that live in a higher frequency of vibration above what we call third density. And that's really what a jinn is when you get to the bottom of it. And so, because they make these contracts with these daemons or demons, higher dimensional entities, to assist them to tap into what they call their higher gifts, right? So they become these great guitarists or pianists or whatever it is, because they say this. They used to say the same thing in ragleaf. You know, that some of the ragleaf um, uh, pianists was going to the crossroads and making deals with the devil too. You know, and so, and the culture that they are getting these subscriptions of things from is coming from what we call, you know, Yoruba. It's the Yoruban and Santorian, um, you know, traditions. Now, the origins of that is not all Africa, you know, because I can show you plainly through the ancient Mayan and Aztec calendars that every single day there's a calendar system that tells you about what prescriptions of things that you need to do spiritually to maintain balance on your day-to-day living. And they used to go to the priests, priestesses, go to these different elder councils to do whatever it was they need to do, you know, whether it was prayers, supplications, veneration, adoration, you know, ablution, which is baptism, you know, whether they need to go hit the sauna. Basically, these was different forms of cleansing, spiritual cleansings. All right. And so what we dealing with now, dealing with Puffy, is the tantric sexual rights being perverted, right? And because this is a lot of what's going on right now, is a lot of the sexual perversion of these tantric rites. And they believe that by getting, you know, these youngsters involved and other adults, especially when you doing things like, you know, putting people under chemical induced states of you know, forgetting what it is that's taking place or transpiring, you know, all of that right there, those are forms of demonic, what they call demonic or satanic seduction, you know. um that's a no-go spiritually, you know. You are, if you pervert the rituals and practices, you're going to pay for it one way or the other. It doesn't matter who you are. If you pervert the rituals and practices, If you start doing things without people's knowledge or forcing people to do things that are not of their free will, which means that if it's not coming freely from your heart center, if it's truly not something that you have a passion for, that is you feel is your duty or your calling or something that you should be you're spiritually inclined to do, then don't get involved. Don't do it. And so the entertainment industry has created a culture of this abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, all for the sake of keeping economic control. Because at the end of the day, whether we acknowledge it or not, the entertainment industry is owned and run by the military. All right, whether you recognize it or not, whether you go do your research, and you'll find that the military has been in control of all of the propaganda. That's the whole reason why Obama had signed a bill, or what was it? He created the act that he basically was stating that there is an allowance for governments to create false propaganda and use it publicly and make it something that is advocated amongst the different branches and bureaus that are subject under it. And so it's being predicated in our faces right now. So what we think we looking at dealing with the state of hip hop right now and all these different artists that are being put on Front Street, this is just nothing more than our, as I call it, uh, you know, it's part of the cosmic drama. These people are playing out soap operas. They signed up to sell out to play these to sell out to play these soap operas. You know, to sell you these things till they could be distractions for you, to you. So that you would be looking at them as these great things. But you know I mean, let's be honest, what are celebrities really doing for you in your life? you know I mean, unless you directly connected to a celebrity, you're basically, what you're doing by being a fanatic or a fan, that's idol worship. Like they say, you're my idol. That's what it is. That's what idol worship is. That's delusion. You really want to, if you're going to worship anybody, it should be yourself. you know and I don't mean that to the point of what they call narcissism. i'm saying that I'm saying it in the truest sense, that the kingdom of heaven is within, and worship starts within self. So what we're watching right now is perversion. Um when I guess you could say, when keeping it gangster goes gay. you know like they showed on Boondocks, thug love. I mean, it is what it is. It's all around us, though. We in the world right now because of the shift of astrologically. We would definitely be looking at the fact that Saturn is right now in Uranus. So a lot of the rules and things that people that were doing, that were rebelling against what we would call the principles of nature, things are going to be checked. They're going. There's going to be a lot of things that's going to be checked, and unfortunately, for people who don't want to acknowledge that there is a nature to nurture. Nature is what it is. There is a natural selection. There is a natural providence of creation that manifests around us at all times. And when you are out here abusing that power, you know, as they say, absolute power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's where he's at. He was so busy wanting to be back in the day with Nicky Barnes and, you know, I mean, is it the fact that he wanted to be so much like it's pops. You know, they say that you chip off the old block, but come on, y'all. Like, when we gonna learn to stop celebrating the things that's destroying us? When are we gonna come out of that place in that state of mind and emotion where our passions are driven by so-called hood credit, like street credit, like you know who's the most violent? I mean, I'm not trying to sound like I understand the nature of natural selection, the cycle of life, why animals in the wild hunt to live, but guess what? There's rules that they have amongst one another, and they don't even mind, helping one another when they see, oh man, I've seen the stories where they've shown literal hyenas help baby lion cubs out of in a bad situation and bring them back to another lion's pride, not knowing if that's their pride or not, but they brought them to a lion's pride, and then the lion's pride just took him in because there were mothers who lost children. Anyway, those cubs came around. So nature always has a way of keeping balance of things. It's just cosmic order, and you know, we gotta really get a little wiser. Like, we're in the day and time where we gotta be more discriminate, and to which wolf we're feeding, because the times are changing and the vibration and frequency is going higher, not lower. And if you're going lower, you're going to literally go into a state of chaos. Not chaos in the sense of the natural, chaos and order of the universe, but chaos as in you're going to be lost. You're going to be off track. You will be out of sequence of your natural selection of pattern, which will ultimately cause your bloodline to become extinct. And if you to be totally honest, to me, when they talk about extinction level events and stuff like that, to me that's what they're talking about. The decisions that man is making on the everyday process right now, everyday passage, their day-to-day life. They're making decisions that are based on selfish things. Like, you're getting wealthy to do what? Like, really, are you attempting to gain wealth to assist the other people around you, your community? These are the things that are principles that are going to come up in this time that's going to be checked. World powers are losing power because they have been abusing power so long. Absolute power is corrupting absolutely. And what happens after absolute corruption comes about? It must burn. It must end. And it was already prophesied by our ancestors that, this nation would be the shortest lived nation of ever, a world power ever. And it's happening right now before our face. There are some of us that's right now, we can all remember and think to ourselves, like, we saw all the stuff like the Jetsons and, oh, where's the flying cars in there? Yeah, well, guess what? We got them. We got them. And guess what? It's enough wealthy people to start flying vehicles. And pretty soon they're going to be aviating in the skies. It will be Jetson time. They will be building. I mean, like what you're seeing in Dubai, the whole thing with the buildings going, thousands of stories up in the air, hundreds of stories up in the air, well, thousands of stories in the air. That's going to become a standard soon. We're going to see it, but the question is are we going to become wiser to get to that place, or are we going to continuously go through this state of self-destruction? I mean, in nature, every fall leaves, when autumn comes, the leaves fall. Winter comes and things die. So I mean, I understand everything is cyclic. Where will you be in the circle is the question, though. You know, and so I mean, that's where I'm at when I look at the whole situation with Sean Combs, because the perversion that's coming out is not just him, it's the moguls that's above all these different um, communication companies. Because let's just be honest. I mean, it's the communication companies that's running the record labels. Been doing it for a long time. They decide who. I mean, think about it. Like there was a time where rap wasn't even seen or heard or even valued on the radio. Aside from hearing like rappers delight. You know, then certain things became more mainstream with Run DMC and um, um, the Beastie Boys, the Fat Boys, and Curtis Blow, and you know, I mean, those things cracked and opened the doors, but it's all been a programming, y'all. It's all been a programming, and we just need to pay attention. You know, the leaders that's been presented to us, they were given to us, and most of them still are to this day controlled. You know, and I'm glad. I ain't gonna lie. Shout out to Cat Williams. Peace and love to the brother, because once again, it's something about these Ohio people, man. You know, we ain't nobody's fool. Some of us, we go to other places and we run shit. You know, but I mean, truthfully, like it's been a lot of Ohio people who have been whistleblowers, and concerning the war and where we are right now, one of the first whistleblowers to really put shit out here, to really get people to see what was going on with the state of Israel and the Zionist capitalist contracts that they got set up in America, or America's allegiance to Israel, with was gem trafficking from Youngstown, Ohio. Gem trafficking. He was one of the first. They put the man in jail. Then, after him getting out of jail, they murdered him. Allegedly. Not. But yeah, we got to get a little wiser. We got to get, smaller, smarter, and smaller. We got to be able to see smaller. So in order for us to see the bigger picture, you know, it's kind of like studying and watching a blade of grass grow. Can you every day go back to that same blade of grass that you was looking at and actually find it and watch it grow? Having that kind of precise measuring mental capability. Being able to measure and watch that blade of grass grow, and at the same time see the whole lawn. I mean, it's the kind of insight we have to have, the kind of focus, a satellite on Interscope. Yeah, like the record label. But yeah, so then you got this whole situation with, the presidential election, where it's absolutely like a comic book. The current president is somebody wearing a mask, and then the vice president of this president that's running for president is wearing a mask of who they are, lying about their nationality. And it's really, really interesting because, Janet would. Janet Jackson is not the first person to say it, and that's the funny thing. It's just she happens to be a celebrity, but there's a whole lot of us that's been saying it. When she want to pull that, I'm an indigenous American No, the hell you're not. You're lying. And some of us been did the research. When you were running for vice president, when you were chosen for vice president, we went and dug you up. But that's the thing, they say two things you don't argue about is religion and politics, politricks, because they're one and the same. There is no separation of church and state because the church runs the state. You know, the 501c3 is running the corporation. That's really what's going on. So, you know, we just have to become more civically aware of our duty and perform that duty on a regular basis. The youth of today, uh, they're not really they didn't have to they don't have to study like we had to study the history, and that's where a lot of mistakes are being made right now. Is that that's the study of history is not being properly observed. Like, you know, if you don't go and look and see what is taking place in the past, you will not only repeat the past, but you'll end up falling deeper into ignorance of knowledge of self, awareness of where things originate and how and why it came to be this way. It's almost like buying books like biographies with no forward, no epilogue, no, nothing. Just the story just begins. And we have to become wiser about how we look at history now. We got all this technology. Uh, by now, we should have been creating a whole lot more solutions to different issues in the way that we're living with nature. So, but like I said, I'm not trying to sound like I'm pro nature. That's what I am. I'm pro nature and nurture. So, um, if you like what I'm talking about, please hit the like button and communicate. Stay in touch. Subscribe to my channel because things are just now really getting started. I got a whole lot to share. Peace and love.